Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report this weekend. Talked a lot about wheat, the situation in the northern corn belt with Kristi and Naomi before. But let's talk about the soybean prices, because we saw volatility definitely continue to be a factor in this market this week. Some major swings. What are soybeans watching at this point?
Well, the soybean market right now is just continuing to be aware of how tight the ending stocks are in the United States. 235 million bushel for old crop, just over 300 million for the new crop. And that's with all of those bigger expected acres that the USDA gave us on the March 31st report. So actually, I'm thinking that the soybean market is watching a couple things. It's nervous that if we don't get all of those acres into the ground, like we were talking about with North Dakota, that we're not going to have enough production available for where the demand is, because the USDA increased demand for new crop. We've got more demand for exports. We've got more demand for the crush. And when you take into account how, on a global perspective, all of our edible oils are still lower on supplies, we need the US to have this big crop out there. So I do think that the new crop soybeans are watching that. I think that the new crop November price is ready to pounce if it needs to entice more acres to definitely get planted. So really keep an eye on that new November price in the coming weeks.
Kristi, when we were at Northern Corn and Soybean Expo in North Dakota in February, we talked a lot about renewable diesel and the possibility there. But now, as we look at the shortage of cooking oil and some of the vegetable oil that could be a factor, and knowing that we need all of those oils when it comes to meeting some of these renewable diesel demand, do you think that it really does cause renewable diesel to maybe be pushed back a little bit when it comes to the timeline?
I don't think it does. I think what you end up seeing is the battle on the cash side of things. So, producers in this northern part of the Corn Belt are in for what I think could be something really special moving forward with renewable diesel. You have a sweet spot that has just really found itself a niche into soybeans. We plant and grow really great soybeans around here. It gives us some flexibility. Like Naomi said earlier, the PNW ships a ton of beans out of that area. And now you have some crush facilities being built currently right now in North Dakota. So I do think that it's not going to push it back, but what you might see is a more aggressive bid. And that's going to be great for farmers to see as they're moving forward and seeing that cash. But I think the battle comes on the cash side of things more or less than really a change in policy.
Well, on the feed usage side, talking to some pork producers lately, these feed prices, are double what some expected, and it's not penciling for their operations. On the cattle side, hearing similar concerns. But when you look at what's happening in the economy, gas prices hitting a new record, not to mention the whole situation with diesel. Naomi, do you see the economy weighing on meat demand as we head into the height of grilling season?
It's a mixed answer. In the big picture, it might allow for some depressed demand for some of the higher cuts of steak and some of the higher cuts of beef. But here's the reality. There is no substitution for beef. If I want to have Taco Tuesday night with my kids, if I want to make spaghetti, if I'm hungry for a burger, I'm not going to substitute ground turkey for it. I'm just not. So what we've seen in previous years, like in 2014, we had high priced crude oil, we had high priced cattle, and yeah, the demand faltered a little bit, but it doesn't disappear because, again, there's no substitute for it. What you see are moms starting to maybe put in a little bit less poundage into their recipes for mealtime, but the demand doesn't quit. And when I drive around my local community, which is a really neat mix of white collar and blue collar, restaurants are still full every single night of the week. And people are ordering a variety of meals on their plates. And when I'm in line at the grocery store, I'm seeing carts still full. So I'm not sure if this is actually happening and we are really seeing demand falter, or if it's just news to make short-term prices fall.
So is there anything then that you see really being a barrier for cattle prices then in the coming months?
Well, short term, we still have the reality that the front month cattle contracts are reflecting cash values. Cash values continue to kind of hold near 130 to 135. Every once in a while, they'll push up to 140. So the front month contracts continue to reflect that. Right now, front month cattle are trading at a discount to the cash. The deferred contracts, I love that December contract. It's oversold. It needs to come back up. We have a cattle on feed report on Friday afternoon, and that's going to be a bigger impact for next week as far as where prices can go. I do think that the deferred cattle actually need to come back up for prices. And I'm very well aware that, feed costs for all of these producers are high. And we have to keep an eye on pasture conditions coming up as well. But again, deferred cattle contracts, I think, is still a friendly story.
Naomi, Kristi, thank you so much for joining us this weekend. We really appreciate it. We need to take a quick break right here on U.S. Farm Report, and then we'll be back with much more.
It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.